We'll just start here.
What was that?
We'll just start here and just go from here.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. I hit record. What's up, everyone? It's your boy. We're back with another, hopefully not messed up episode of Sick Days. And today I'm with none other than Danny Boy Smith. That's your full name, right, Danny?
Yeah.
The boy part is in the middle as well.
Yes.
Yeah. This man is a tattoo artist, and he loves riding bikes and motorcycles. And he's done pretty much every tattoo on my body except for the little moon.
For the little moon.
Yeah, but you did these ones. Did the one on my ankle. You did the double one right here.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's done. I haven't gotten anyone else because I love Danny, and he's a super cool dude. And I just want to interview, dude. Like, how you been?
Well, not too shabby.
Yeah. What you been up to?
You know, like I was telling you, I'm getting ready to do a cross country trip.
Yep.
I've been thinking about this for the last 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to do a fully semi-unsupported trip across the United States. So my job allows me to, be mobile, which I already am. I already travel a lot for work, but I've never I've done single events, but I've never done a full tour. So this is going to be my very first full tour.
So you tattoo, and so you're going to be going to a bunch of different tattoo shops and just guest starring in there?
Exactly.
That's so
friends of
sick.
mine I've made over the years. I've been doing this for 27 years. So it's
So sick.
I have friends all over the place, and I'm all why don't I just go see them all, or as many as possible?
Yeah, that's dope. That's the dream. I want to do that with this eventually and be like, hey, I'm just going to go to a bunch of people's houses across America and do a podcast with them. I think it'd be freaking awesome. One thing I was telling you earlier, why I wanted to start this podcast, you were one of the first people I want to interview in my head.
Oh, what?
When you got me my first tattoo, when the hummingbird, talking to you reminded me how much I love talking to people, because I asked you so many questions. I don't know how much I annoyed you that day while you were tattooing.
Probably knew
me.
each other better at the end of it.
Yeah, we talked a lot.
I always say
skateboarding.
tattooing is an experience,
It was great, and you made it freaking awesome. But I remember I went home and I legit thought I'd love to have a video of getting tattooed while interviewing you and trying to ask you questions while I'm getting tattooed, because I know I wouldn't be able to focus.
No, it gets a little trickier. Easier for me, harder for you.
Yeah, because I wouldn't know what to say while I'm going
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't want it to sound like a porno. So
Yeah.
it's like...
I got inspired because I listened to this one podcast where a dude, he went to, I guess, like a porno, he went to Dominatrix and interviewed her while he was getting tortured. And,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I was like, that'd be pretty sick in a tattoo version.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple of dominatrix about their jobs.
How's that for them?
I've tattooed them. They love it.
Yeah?
They freaking love it.
And do they get weird clients at all? Or?
Oh yeah. What do you think's the first question I ask? So I unlike podcasts, and there are a few tattooers who do podcasts.
Yeah.
You can find them out there, and I think it's kind of cool. There are people who are all the stories that we tell and we've gone through. They're starting to do podcasts about them now.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've always I sit down with my clients, and you have some clients that talk, some that don't.
Yeah.
So I always start off talking. It also helps me find out if they're going to pass out on me or not.
Yeah.
But that was one of the things. I've tattooed a couple dominatrix, and I asked them, what are the weird ones? And it wasn't anything too crazy, I think the infancy thing, I'm a baby, spank me. I always thought those were kind of bizarre.
Uh-huh.
But they had never told me anything,
Too crazy.
Too crazy.
Like they got the mayor coming in.
Right, well, there might have been.
They might have been, but
Might have been,
You never know. I think that's the crazy part. There was
Yeah.
someone up in Reading who was actually on I forgot what I think it was the My Weird Addiction or something like that.
Okay.
And he was the kind of dude who liked to be dressed as a baby and
Yeah.
treated he was put in a giant crib and stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, dude. No,
Yeah.
and they hire moms to talk
That's
to
so
them in
wild.
baby language.
Pick them
and-
up, big ladies just
Yeah,
pick you up.
pick up a 250-pound dude,
oh my god.
and burp him.
Oh my god.
I don't understand it. It's not my thing, and I'm not gonna pass judgment on it. But
Yeah.
I'm yo, man, therapy.
Yeah, right.
Get some therapy, dog.
Yeah, fetishes are weird.
Fetishes are weird. I we talked about that with me and my girlfriend. Do we have any fetishes? And I was like, No, not really. I guess we're kind of fucking boring,
Yeah.
but we've also lived like these lifestyles that were kind of crazy.
Yeah. Kind of
So
get it out.
I feel like, yeah, I feel like some people who have the fetishes
Hmm.
have these mundane lives.
Yeah.
And then behind the closed doors, it
They
becomes a
that's where it
different
gets
thing.
crazy. Yeah, I think that's pretty common, huh? Like I think
Yeah.
people do that.
Like accountants
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
politicians
They
and,
get the weird stuff. Some people say it's like a power dynamic thing, and so
yes,
they
they
gotta like,
want they want to switch the role.
yeah,
They want to be on the receiving side rather than, like the driving
yeah.
force,
I don't think I have any weird fetishes. I definitely make people think I do, but
Yeah, no, I'm weird,
yeah,
but I'm all like, and I can get real weird, but I'm
yeah,
not that kind of
that kind of
weird,
weird.
you
Yeah, no,
know.
it's
I'm more on the bizarre side.
bizarre. Yeah, bizarre things.
Just
One
bizarre stuff.
one that really makes me laugh is the idea of a foot fetish.
Yeah.
Not because it's weird, but I don't know why I've been coming up with an argument for 4 feet.
Okay.
I'm not into
4 feet?
Yeah, 4 feet. I'm just like
Just not 2 feet?
it's yeah. It's like it's weird because people like the idea of feet is gross, right? So you're on your feet all day and whatnot.
Right.
But it's like at the end of the day, it's just another part of the skin.
It's attached
And
to
if
you.
someone keeps their feet clean, like why are you opposed to it? I don't know. It's a weird argument. I'm not into it, but I could see why someone would be into it, or I can see why it's not too crazy.
There's fetishes for everything. If
Yeah.
you go into that world. Excuse
Yeah.
me. I feel like when I was in Japan,
Oh, sick! You went to Japan?
I went to Japan. It was one of my dreams to do it. I went and
Yeah.
tattooed in Japan.
Oh no
And
way!
I remember all my friends were all, you have to go to the vending machine and get me some underwear. And I was all, wait, what? And they're like, oh yeah, they have vending machines that have underwear there. And I'm like, so if you shit your pants, you can just go get a pair of underwear? And they're like,
That's
no,
funny.
no, like girls' underwear.
Yeah, they sell their underwear.
They sell their underwear.
That's so
and
wild.
I knew people were doing that here. And I have had friends of mine who've given like John Waters their underwear.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, John Waters is a weird dude, like, and he loves that shit.
Shouts out John
especially
Waters.
Yes, I love that guy. Especially in public place, he's all about it, right? So John Waters, I'm like, fuck, man, like I grew up on his films. My mom was a huge fan, so I get that. But in Japan, speaking of, once again, we're right back to you live this lifestyle mundaneness.
That's very true. They do have like a
All right.
strict
So
lifestyle schedule.
when they go on the outside of things, they always take their shit pretty far.
They do. They do. That's so wild to think about.
So when I was there, I went looking for these fucking machines and I couldn't find them. So I turned to my friend Hero.
Yeah.
And he's all like, "Oh yeah, no, they don't sell this. They don't have them out on the streets anymore.
Oh really?
You have to go to the strip clubs to get them.
Oh,
But
wow.
that was real." And he's like, "Oh yeah, they used to be everywhere."
Whoa.
So would a girl like have a box of underwear and just put them on, take them off, clean pile, dirty pile, like, and
That's
just
so
like
wild.
package them up? Because they said you would get a little card
Yeah.
and have her stats. Well, I'm not quite sure what the stats are. Like, I wanted to go
What
get
her pH level.
yeah, exactly. It's like, what are the stats? Like, I have no idea. Like, is there a bacon strip involved? Like,
That's
who knows?
So wild.
But everyone was all about them. My friends didn't want them because they were gonna like
Use
sit there and sniff them.
Yeah.
And all, they
a
just thought
novelty.
it was weird. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
a novelty. I don't know. Do you know who Belle Delphine is?
Who?
Belle Delphine. She was like this internet sensation. Like, she's like kind of the girl who, I might be completely wrong, but she kind of got started with like she did like the anime girl face with her eyes being cross-eyed, and she got really famous on TikTok and whatnot. Became pretty controversial. She ended
I'm
up
sure if I saw her, I might know who she is.
Yeah, and
so.
she started selling her bath water. People would buy vials of their bath
Oh,
water.
I think I did hear about that part.
I wish I bought some of that bath water just to have for someone one day to walk into my house. It's like, you have that?
You have that?
Because she had to pull it off the shelves because people were starting to drink it. And they would start puking and get sick. And like, you guys are
Well, of
fucking
course,
dumb.
there's probably like bath bombs
Yeah.
and all the other like Epsom salt. And
Yeah.
You just drank an Epcot.
But I wish I had one. Like, to have that in your house is just like a collectible piece of like whatever, you know. It's just it's weird. It's super weird, but yeah, man. I
Oh,
mean, that's
wow.
so sick. You went to Japan. How long ago did you do that?
This was like before my mom passed,
Mm-hmm.
so it's probably been like 8 years now.
Mm-hmm.
No, probably a little longer, like 10 years, I think. Um, yeah, I was only there for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Um, but it was cool because I've done a lot of traveling by myself,
Yeah.
especially going to a foreign country where you don't, speak the language. And don't let your friends like lie to you when they're like, oh, yeah, when you're in Tokyo, everybody speaks English.
Yeah.
That was complete bullshit. Like, I got there and no one spoke English. Um, the guy I was with, the business, how Tokyo runs their tattoo shops, mostly Tokyo, maybe the rest of Japan, but in Tokyo, I can speak for.
Mm-hmm.
You have the front man who's the main artist, and then you have the businessman
Yeah.
who's behind the scenes, and he runs the whole shop. And the
Yeah.
other guy is the one that'll be internet famous or
Yeah. Yeah. It's like
everyone
a
knows.
Partnership.
Yeah, it's like the partnership. So it's
Yeah.
which I think's actually really smart.
That's probably the smartest way to
No,
do
it's like artists are terrible businessmen. And it's
it.
like I wish that here, I'm not going to say anything about my shop,
Yeah. Can we say where you
but
work?
what's that?
Can we say where you work?
Oh yeah, I work at Red Room on Nord,
Shouts out Red Room Tattoo.
and but it's like every tattoo shop I've worked at that has an artist running it
Mm-hmm.
has its problems.
And that's usually what happens, right? It's like a artist opens up a lot of times, not all the time, but there's usually an artist that opens up on his own and then just tries to figure it out. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
kind of like with skateboarding.
Some of them fall into it. I know that the owner of the shop I'm at now, Dylan,
Mm-hmm.
he fell into it to where someone else was like, "Oh my God, this place!" Someone I think folded their shop, and they ended up buying it.
Oh wow,
That's what you always try to do. You
try to
always
buy out a
try to
shop.
buy a shop that already exists because you can change the name and all that.
Mm-hmm.
People just remember that building over there
That's smart.
had tattoo shops in. That's old as the hills. They've been doing that for at least 100 years. Like always buy an old tattoo shop.
Just like rebrand it.
Yep, and just rebrand it and redo it, and then you're back out into the world.
That makes sense. I might
So
have to,
that
if I ever open up a skate shop, I'm gonna look. If I do it
Yeah.
again, I'm gonna look for a shop that's
buy
like
buy out
buy out-
one that was
yeah.
already there.
Yeah, and be like, hey, you
because
guys closing
everyone
down?
else will remember it.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I can tell you so many times like I talk to people because I constantly have the same questions I ask everybody. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, where'd you get that tattoo? And they're like, I don't remember. It was somewhere down there on Polk Street.
Yeah.
And then I'd be like, oh yeah, that was probably blah blah blah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you're over here, it was so and so. I know them, but they don't.
Yeah.
But and then I was all, oh, now I get it why they're saying buy an old shop.
Yeah. People remember that location
Yeah,
instead
so-
of whatever the sign is.
Yeah,
That's
so it's
sick.
like, yes, people do fall into that. But in Japan, they totally run it differently.
Huh.
And the business guy, like, is the business guy.
That's sick.
So Tanaka, who I was working with, and like, his English was pretty good, but it was like very proper.
And how'd you meet him?
I met him. Oh God, I don't have to start using people's names. I'll leave it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
I had a friend in a band,
Yeah.
very well known, and he went into partnership with my friend Hiro
Mm-hmm.
out in Japan. And this is before me and Hiro knew each other.
Yeah.
And he was like, "You can come out to Japan." I was like, "Oh hell yeah, I'm jumping on this opportunity. That's on my list of things to do in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is to go to Japan." So I went ahead and I went and talked to some other tattooers I knew who'd already been there, because I was like, "Well, if you're going to do something you've never done before, go find someone who's done it. Ask them how they did it." And one of the key things that my friend Juan Puente told me was like, get a weekly mansion. I'm all, what's a weekly mansion? So it's kind of like a renting a room,
Mm-hmm.
like it's like almost like an apartment building, but it's like a hotel, but it's not a hotel. They have no services there. So when you say like you go for a month,
Yeah.
no one's going to go into that room and clean it the
Huh.
whole month you're there.
It's almost
They
like
won't
renting
step in.
an Airbnb apartment style.
Almost,
thing.
yes.
Yeah.
Until you're done, then they come in. And the bathroom, I'll get to that. It was hilarious. But he told me about this. He goes, it's really cheap because this is what I do. And it's in the garment district. I forget what they call it. It started with an A. And so I went and I got that. And I remember getting it I got it for the entire time I was there. And I think I spent like $600
Oh, wow.
for just under 2 weeks.
That's pretty
Which
good.
is like in Tokyo is unheard
I was about to
of.
say, because the inflation like in Tokyo is crazy, right?
Oh, it's crazy.
A cup
So
of
like
coffee's
my
like
buddy
$14.
who's in the band who's got money to burn,
Yeah.
you know, he went and rent a hotel room.
Yeah.
And I think his was like 3 to 4 times more
Wow.
than what I was spending.
Yeah.
Right. So, but he's like, you know, they come out. So I get there to the weekly mansion, and I get there and he told me, Juan's all like, okay, 2 things you need to know. First thing, it's going to be full of Japanese businessmen or businessmen from other Asia countries and European models. And I was all like,
That's a
what?
good combo.
Why the models? He goes, you're in the garment district. So they use the models
Yeah.
for the garments. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I wander in, my terrible Japanese, his terrible English. We figure it out. And I'm looking around, and sure enough, yes, there's short Japanese businessmen and these super tall, really skinny European girls.
That's
It was
the way it
such
goes.
the bizarre
That's so
combo.
funny.
I was like, look, they're either really tall or really little, you
Yeah.
know. And I was all like, God damn, dude, these chicks are as tall as me, if not taller.
Yeah. And you're
They were
pretty tall. You're a
huge. I'm
taller
like
dude.
6'2".
Yeah.
And these girls were like as tall as me, if not taller.
Wow.
And they were super skinny. So being that I'm there, I'm all like, all right, I'm going to try to act like a Canadian or a European.
Yeah.
You know, because the Americans stuck out like fucking sore thumbs.
That's what I hear.
So the second thing he told me, he goes, look for the 7-Eleven. So I was all like, what? He goes, it's going to become your friend. I was like, all right. So I went wandering down the street, and sure enough, like about a block and a half away is a 7-Eleven on the corner. I'm like, okay,
That's funny.
noted. Remember 7-Eleven.
Yeah.
Which came into play later, you know. After that, one of the other things I did is I went to McDonald's McDonald's, and I don't eat fast food.
Yeah.
But they were like, you have to go have one of the burgers at McDonald's. And I walked in, and the first thing I noticed is like, this is like a 2 to 3 story, very narrow. All the buildings are really narrow. They remind me of like New York, like, you know, shotgun style. Like they're really narrow and really tall, but it's about as wide as this room. And it was really tall, and it went back.
Wow.
And on the walls, like sealing the floor, was like this graffiti artist Norm, like these huge trains with all his names all over it.
That's dope.
And I knew the dude from like when he was just coming into tattooing, and Grime was showing him how to tattoo. I became friends with him when he was a piercer, and that's why I think like Juan said, you got to go to
trying to get connected.
yeah, to get me in there. And I walked in, I was like, oh, what the fuck? Like, holy shit. So you're seeing all this artwork. And Norm did huge, like rollout style stuff that was like, 2 stories tall and like, 150 feet wide.
Damn.
They were monsters. So I get there, and there it is, like this giant stuff, which later on I asked him about that. And he goes, oh yeah, they kind of stole it. They took it off photographs of trains and buildings.
Whoa.
Because they made the wallpaper
Whoa.
out of it. But he goes, I kind of let it slide.
Yeah.
Because he tattooed at this same shop.
Okay.
And he went there and stumbled into
His own art.
and was all like, what the fuck? I
That's a
think
trip.
he did get paid out of that. But I remember I was like, I too wandered in the same place. It's like, what the hell? So,
That's
but yeah,
interesting.
the shop itself was like 2nd floor, no sign, barely art on the walls. And, because I forgot that, oh yeah, Japan, like you're tattooing, even though they are the forefathers of modern tattooing, it's extremely frowned upon. So like when I first got there, like the guy who I won't mention, like was all like, yeah, man, like, and he's heavily tattooed.
Yeah.
He's got shit
Yeah.
like right on his forehead. And he goes, all right, man. So there's places we can't go.
Yeah. Okay, so I remember I would watch a lot of documentaries on like Yakuza and stuff like that.
Yep.
And
It's
Japan,
the
one of the
Yakuza
ways,
law. Yeah.
yeah, when they crack down and they're like, hey, tattoos, no go.
It's a no go.
Yeah, like full body
Yep.
fits,
There
no
was a
more.
lot of no gyms, no
You
pools,
couldn't
no
even open a bank
bathhouse,
account.
no, like none of that. And
Yeah.
he goes, it's pretty funny. So we were standing there, and he's telling me all this, and he goes, and you're gonna find people staring at you.
Yeah.
And we're not talking like on a subway side eyed.
Yeah.
They're gonna like just eyeball and look at you, and I'm
You're
all
6'2", you're American, you're
Yeah.
full of tattoos. Yeah.
like you're some weird American covered in tattoos. And I didn't have my head tattooed on. The back of my head and neck was done, but
Yeah.
not the top of my head. So as he's telling me this, like this 15-year-old kid's come tromping down the street, and he sees us, and he stops. And I remember him planting his feet and sticking his arms out, and just sat there and stared at it, like dead stop. And we're talking, and then I kind of like looked over and like looked back at him, and I'm all like, what's happening? And he goes, hey pal, what can I do for you? And the kid just turned around on the side street and went running.
Oh my God.
And when I was just all like, and I looked at it, I was like, is this going to happen like all the time? And he's like, oh, no. That's a isolated incident. He goes, they do stare at you, but you're not going to see that. That was kind of weird.
He probably just heard myths of men covered in tattoos. He's like, my mom just told me to stay away from you.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I don't know what happened. And like, I don't know if he recognized him from the band or something. Yeah. But he was all like,
he was shook.
He was shook, dude. Like, he was like frozen.
Yeah.
There, just standing there frozen.
Yeah, and they're still pretty strict with it.
They still are. They're cracking down even more right now.
A friend of mine,
the last I talked to,
he wants to teach overseas in Japan. He wants to go to school, be an English teacher, and teach over there. But he's like, he has 1 or 2 tattoos, but he's not going to get any more specifically to avoid the whole situation. So I'm like, hey, you do what you do. That's a trip. Like, it is. When I first started getting tattoos, I got really into it. Like, once I started doing something, I like to get into the history of something that I do. Like, one of the reasons I got my septum was because some of the Mayan tribes, they would get the septum and kind of try to do my research on stuff. So I did a lot of tattoo history research and learned about the Tabori tattoos and stick and poke and all that cool stuff. And it's really interesting that, like, Japan having some of the most painful looking technique plus one of the most like demanding techniques on getting tattoos, and they're like just shutting it down. It's just crazy to me to think that they're doing that.
They invented the color.
There
was no color before them.
Oh wow!
Every tattoo was black.
It was all tribal black ink style, huh?
They were the ones, and then their composition, like, and that's like where like Sailor Jerry became like kind of like well known because he realized he like looked at American traditional and Japanese and was, oh shit, we're almost doing the same thing.
Yeah, the bold lines.
Yeah, bold lines, heavy color, leaving skin,
symbolism.
You know, and he was one who's like, oh, even though he was pretty racist. We'll be open about that. Yeah. Well, you know, he was part of World War II, so
it stems from that
Japanese.
Era.
Yeah,
like, it's hard
to say some fucked up shit.
It's hard to think about anybody who's been like a pioneer in something, and you got to accept the fact that they probably said some racist shit.
Yeah,
like some of my favorite.
Well, like back artists, when he was saying that racist shit, everyone was saying that racist shit.
Especially like in a war with another country too. Like, you're not going to be nice to the country who just hit Pearl Harbor. Like, yeah, so it is what it is. But at least we have American traditional. And what do you think about neo-American traditional?
I like it.
Yeah.
I don't do it. I steal aspects from it.
Yeah.
I mean, that pretty much came out of like part of like what New School was. Yeah. In the 90s.
I like New School because I personally don't want any New School tattoos, but I really do enjoy that a lot of them look like Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
Yeah, well, they also, like, everything was warped and twisted.
Yeah.
Like, especially when I got into tattooing, like, in the late 90s. It was in full fucking swing.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I could draw that crap, dude. I'm like, I'll just smoke a fuckload of weed and just be like, whoa, dude.
Yeah, everything was extra cartoony.
Everything was really cartoony. But the theory was still there. Was these big fat lines and tons of color. And the problem they were doing, though, and the guy I used to work with in Let It Bleed in SF, like, you know, and he'd been tattooing for a long time, longer than me. And he was like saying, goes, yeah, he goes, look at my arm. I got these tattoos like back in the early 90s. And
Yeah.
they used all these pastel colors, really
Oh.
soft colors. And some things didn't have, you know, because we like to say black is like the skeleton, you know, that holds the tattoo together. And the color is like the muscle and the tissue. So even if all that fades away, you still have a skeleton. A lot of these guys were not putting black outlines around certain things. So then when all the color over like 15 years or so fades
Yeah.
away, depending on how much you're in the sun, your body type, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden you look at the tattoo and you're like, what is that?
Yeah. Like it just spreads out and bleeds away.
I can't tell because like, well, they were using these super soft colors and they'd put two of them. They were like, you know, like Easter green next to an Easter yellow.
Oh, no.
And you're like, oh my God, those are super pastel.
Yeah.
And like those lighter colors just fade away. So where in the more traditional stuff, it was just heavy, you know, like whack, whack.
Yeah. Heavy reds, heavy blues.
And then you're like, you look at some old sailor dude who did not put lotion on it, who did not do all the things we say to do. They didn't care. And then he worked out in the fields forever. And then, you know, yeah, that tattoo of his hula girl looks blown out, but you go, that's a hula girl.
Yeah, you can still see it.
I can still see it. And he's still like, yeah, I can make her dance, you know, like, you know, still to this,
You know, I say that about the heart. I can make it beat. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad I got that one. Yeah, that's so sick to think about, like the transitions of like tattoo form and the art that goes into it and like what it's evolved into today. I mean, I don't know a lot about it. I imagine you're always being updated, whether you're into it or whoever comes to the shop.
I am updated, like obviously with trends and so forth.
Yeah.
As far as like deep history, I'm not the best at it. You know, like I got a lot of my friends who read all the books, remember the names and dates and who and where, what, when, and why. And then I'm all like, yeah, I just tattoo because it's, you know, it's fun. And I like drawing and making things. And yes, I look at stuff. And yes, I will always attribute to where I got the idea from.
Yeah.
You know, but I can't sit here and tell you where, you know, like how Zeus pulled this history from so-and-so back when he was so-and-so in the Bowery and it was back in 1954 and then there was the ink battle, blah, blah, blah. And that shit really happened. I mean, yes, I've read a couple books, but I'm not like a good
scholar.
historian.
Yeah, a scholar in tattooing.
Yeah, I did a talk once at the Jewish Museum in San Francisco, and it was a lot of like history kind of stuff, and I was all like, oh fuck, man, like I'm not the best at this shit. So I'm all like, so I talked about subcultures and tattoos because I was like, well, I'm part of the subculture, so I'm like, I can talk about that. You know, so that's what I got up and I talked about, you know, like, you know, punk rocks and skaters and all the other scenes and everything. And I talked primarily like Bay Area because that's where I was from. And I told everyone, this is what I'm going to talk about because it's what I know.
That's the way to do it.
Yeah. So keep with what I know.
What got you into tattooing? I remember you told me a while back.
I kind of fell into the job.
Yeah.
It's not like now where, you know, kids are like, first of all, back when I started, you could not just order online.
Yep.
There was no online.
Yeah.
You had, there was two supply companies, National and Spalding and Rogers. And in order to order from them, you needed a sponsor to bring you in. So someone had to vouch for you to do it. Right. So for me, I started getting tattooed in the late 80s. My first couple tattoos were stick and pokes me and my friends would do. And then I remember my friend was like, oh, I'm going to this shop in San Jose and I get tattooed by this guy. And I was like, oh man, I really want to go, but I'm only 17. And he's like, if you just come with us, like just stay in the back. And he doesn't really check IDs. He's an old dude.
Yeah.
So I went with them and I just flashed money, just held out cash. I was like, I want that one. And I flashed money. And Pinky's wife, who was the dragon lady, was all like, snatched that money out of my
That's so
hand.
funny.
And I knew I'm in.
Yeah, that's
She
so
didn't
great.
even bother. Like, there was no paperwork. You could drink and smoke in the lobby. Like, this place was old school. So
Yeah.
I didn't learn who this guy was until later.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it was just like there's this old school dude. And the other shops I've stuck my head in at that time, like the very first shop I stuck my head in was Phil Simms' shop in Belmont on El Camino. This is like mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I stuck my head in and I looked at possibly Phil. I don't know who it was. But they had a gun on their hip, right? And I saw like biker flash or like swastikas. And I was all like, nope, fuck that, out. And I walked out. But I was young. I was probably like 15.
Yeah.
And the second shop, which was Goldfields on Broadway. And I used to go to shows, this place called Mahube Gardens across the street. So like before, we would always go up early, because China Banks was right down the way.
Oh,
so
dude.
that's where we used to drink. I would skate China Banks during the day and drink under it at night.
That's so sick.
So China Banks was our spot in Embarcadero. I can go into all the spots, the dish, HP ramp, all that stuff.
I got to skate around Embarcadero last year, and I loved it. I loved every single second of it.
So like, I always joke, like, I skated in Embarcadero when all the corners look like this.
Yeah, when there were sharp corners.
This is like 84, 85. So anyways, I used to go to these shows, and across the street was this place called the Metal Shop or Metal something. Mm-hmm. And it was where all the Heshers, the long hairs.
Yeah.
They go buy their big spike bracelets and stuff. But right next to it was Goldfields. And Goldfields was one of the second, at the time, was the second oldest shop. Picture Machine was the first. Mm-hmm. So I remember wandering in there, and he had this really big lobby. And I looked around, I couldn't see anything. I was like, oh, okay. So then me and my friends started wandering farther inside and a little farther and looking around. And then we just heard this big booming voice, hey, you fucking kids, get the fuck out of here. And we're like, whoa. And we all like ran out into the street, and went to the show, which it's funny because years later I did a painting for him. What, you got outside? You stay out there.
That's so funny.
Yeah. So I did a painting for him, and it was from the Mahube Gardens.
Yeah.
Looking out on the street, and there's like a fist fight and drunk sailors and punk rockers running everywhere, and Goldfield was like, this guy knows what's up. This is the way it used to be, because it was like we used to play the game of stealing sailors' hats. Like a lot of us did it. Which was dangerous because we were kids and they were grown men.
Yeah.
They'd beat the shit out of you. But like those were like my first shops. So to go to like Pinky Yun down in San Jose, like that's where I was just like, I got my foot in the door.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, well, I want to get a tattoo. So I got a bat on my shoulder, which has been covered since then. Like my first couple of tattoos, like I was like 17. I was like, hell yeah, I'm doing this, because at the time, like I was hanging out with all these other dudes and they were tough, and I wanted to be tough too.
Yeah.
And it's like late 80s. And if you want to look tough, get tattoos, because no one had tattoos.
Yeah.
So I got my first couple there, and I would start to go like every week. Every weekend we'd fucking go down, and it was just gangbangers and bikers and us. And you end up spending the whole fucking day there.
That's so sick.
So, and you could smoke and drink in the lobby.
No one's gonna stop you.
I would just sit there and look at all the pictures of all the people, and I was like, dude, this guy's got like a lot of stuff in here. I didn't think about it. So I come to find out later, as I went into the tattoo world, I remember being at the shop and these guys were going through this book. They're like, oh yeah, no way. Oh yeah, no way. I was like, oh, what are you guys looking at? He goes, oh, we're looking at Pinky stuff. I'm all, Pinky Yun? And they're like, oh, you know who Pinky Yun is? He goes, yeah, I got tattooed by him. And they're like, what? I'm like,
so dope.
Yeah, dude, I got my first like 12 tattoos from that guy. They're like, shut up. I'm like, no, this dragon on my arm. Like, I bought it for like $75. Like, and just did the line work. And he did it in like 15 fucking minutes.
That's so dope.
And they were like, no way, you got a tattoo by... He was blind. I'm like, I know. He was an old dude, He never talked. He never, ever talked. So I remember I got this one tattoo. I was really into this band called Rich Kids on LSD, RKL, like skate punk band from
That's
the
so sick.
from the 80s.
You're in the trenches, huh? Like you heavily support the punk scene and
Oh yeah,
into it, bro.
I was so deep in it. That's why I said like love subculture. So
Yeah.
that's what this the melting face of Beanie
Yeah.
Boy came out in their album, and I think it was '88. It was the beginning of '88, and it came with a comic book. And I was like,
That's so
and
sick.
Dan Seitz, who was the artist for that band, like I loved his drawing style, so I totally stole a lot of stuff from Dan.
Yeah.
Because I liked the way he drew, and it was really cool. So I was like, oh, I'm gonna kind of steal that. I steal a little from him. I steal a little bit from Robert Crumb, Jack Davis, all these different artists, comic book or illustrators. So I saw that, and it was like the scene where the dude's face is melting. So I saw RKO play the year before up on Broadway, which I was talking about earlier. Yeah. And one of my buddies, we were like this little skate crew, and he's all, yo, man, like, I got some acid, right? And we've all done a bunch of acid. We did it at school. We did it everywhere. And it was like, it's Bay Area. It's the 80s, dude. We all did. Yeah, acid was cheap as fuck. And everyone else had to pay tons of money, but we were like, the factory was literally across the bay. Like, it was being made right there.
Oh, shit, that's
Berkeley.
right.
It was all coming out of Berkeley.
You know, so fresh made
we were buying
acid.
it for, it was fresh as fuck. And we were buying it for like 50 cents to $1.
That's a trip.
Like, that's it. So we had he got this stuff. He goes, I don't know what this is. These are kind of big, so we're going to break them in half. Turns out it was 4-way window pane. So it's like quadruple dipped, fresh.
Yeah.
And we all took it. And we all took a half. We're like, oh, we'll do half. We'll be fine. And I remember one of my friends telling me, he's like, if you're going to go to a punk show, I'd be a little like, I don't know if you want to take acid at a punk show. It gets a little wild.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah, I can handle this shit. I've eaten acid in school, dude. Like, it's cool. So I totally go, and we go see them play, and they finally come on, and I'm so fucking stoked. And I get up into the pit, and it's the very first time I've ever experienced slow motion in my life. I remember I was in the pit, and it was just like moving super slow, and like everything, like a movie, everything was moving. And then I looked up to the band, and they're playing like normal. But back in the pit, everything was, and I was all like, I jumped out. I was all, whoa, what the fuck was that? And I was all, oh man, this is starting to get a little intense, man. And I'm all like, I think I'm going to make it for the door. And I start to walk out, and then someone like grabs me, and it's pre-Danny Boy. So they're just, Dan, hey, Dan. And I was all like, hey. And then I was talking to him, and his face just starts going, and it turned into the melting face of Beanie Boy. And I was just all like, bah, dude. And I ran outside. And as soon as I ran outside, I looked over, and there's Morgan and Tim and Pete Colpitz and all these dudes that I knew that we all did acid together. Yeah. And they're all outside against the wall. And we all looked at each other, and I'm like, bro. And they're like, we know. And I'm like, okay, well, what do we do now? And we ended up driving around my friend's like old Thunderbird car all night.
Drive on acid?
Yeah. It was not as intense as being in that punk show.
You felt safer.
We felt safer driving around all night.
The hills of San Francisco.
Yep, in San Francisco. We did it all night until like, I don't know, they dropped me off at like wee hours in the morning, and then I couldn't sleep, and went to school, I think, the next day, like fucking
still
sleep
tripping?
deprived. Yeah, a little bit tripping. Like, it's like, what is the 80s, man? That's like how we lived our lives.
That's so sick.
But that's why I wanted the melting face of Beanie Boy on me, because I actually experienced the melting face of Beanie Boy. And I was like, on acid, seeing Rich Kids on LSD. I'm not rich. I was like, the poor kids on LSD, be the sub band. But it's funny because they're just about to go on tour, but most of their original members are dead. So I'm not quite sure how they're doing that.
Yeah.
But
is the vocalist still alive?
What's that?
Their vocalist still alive?
No.
Oh, damn. They're just like subbing like 3 people or what?
Yeah, they're subbing like everybody. Well, everyone who's been in that band throughout the years, because it morphed so many times.
Okay, so they're almost doing like a tribute type thing?
Yeah, so
that's
they
pretty cool.
Pulled everyone together, and it's like all my friends are going to go, and I'm just all like,
not gonna be the
I've
same
seen them
experience.
play so many times, dude. I love them. They were one of my favorites, but I don't know, it'd be just kind of weird without, seeing Jason on stage, like, I'm all, I don't know, it's all right. Maybe next time I'll catch him,
Dude, I can't imagine. Like the most I've done is smoke weed, so I couldn't even imagine what it's like to be tripping on acid.
Definitely weird. Just it's right up there with trying to swim in the ocean on acid. I did that too.
What?
That got really weird.
Like in San Francisco or like
Yeah,
somewhere
yeah.
else?
Well,
Like
down in Pacifica. We were in Pacifica
okay.
actually.
I was
And
about to say, I think it's cold, dude.
it's really
so
cold. But you don't notice it as much.
Yeah, you're on the acid. You're like,
I actually
man,
thought the water was
warm.
boiling and
Oh
it kept
my
jumping
God.
out. And
That's too good.
and we found my friend Tim, who I was like said earlier was with us. You know, Tim Arthur. He disappeared from us, and we were like, oh my God. There was like, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of us, and we went looking for Tim, and we found him down the beach, and he had his face in the sand, almost like he was dead. And we're like, oh fuck, and we were all freaking out. And we run over to him, and he's just sitting there, and he's slowly but surely like wiping his face, like, you know, he's wrapped up in a blanket, and he's laying face first, and he's just slowly doing this with his head. And
Just
we're
feels
like,
the comfort of the sand.
dude, what are you doing? And he's like, I am the bulldozer of life. Each one of these grains of sand is a planet. And we were like, oh, okay. And then he just takes a big bite of fucking sand. And he looks at my friend and just goes, just spits it all over him. And he's all, it's the Big Bang Theory. And then we fell on the ground and laughed for like half an hour.
Oh,
So
that's
it's like,
so dope. That's dope. So like those instances got you introduced to like tattooing into like getting tattoos.
that got me into tattooing. So
How
we
long
can
till,
fast
like,
forward at that point, probably like another 10 years.
That's just
And
getting tatted up.
I was getting tattooed. I got tattooed in a shop a lot. And then later on, I became a bike messenger in like 91. I was living in Santa Cruz out of high school. And that's when I would go to Pinky's all the time.
Yeah.
And all my friends, we all had tattoos, you know, our whole crew. So when I was all like, man, I'm done with you guys. I'm going back to San Francisco. You know, I moved back to San Francisco and then randomly ran into another dude I knew from the peninsula, and he was a bike messenger. And he's like, you know, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, I'm looking for a job. And he's like, what do you want to do? You want to become a bike messenger? And I'm like, well, what do you do? He goes, you pick stuff up, drop stuff off. Talk on the radio all day. And I'm like, fuck yeah, I want to do that. I totally got hired as a bike messenger, and I didn't even have a bicycle at the time.
How'd you get a bike?
I just lied. I just lied through my teeth. It was like this one company called Express Messenger. They're long gone. And they hired me only because I had a friend, her name's Elka from the band Trash Women, and her dad was a dispatcher. And we were friends, and she knew my homies in Santa Cruz.
Yeah.
And that's how we became friends. And then she's like, my dad's a dispatcher, you know.
That's
so
sick. So you got the hookup on.
So I got the hookup, and I remember at the interview, like my friend Mike told me, whatever you do, bring a pen. Just make sure you have a pen, which obviously in the industry later, you always have to have a pen. I carried like 6 or 7 at a time because you had to have people sign your manifest.
Yeah.
You know, when you proof of delivery. So I remember like going to this interview, and the guy asked me a bunch of questions. You know, do you know the city? I'm like, yeah, dude, I've been lived here all my life. You know, like been in and out. I didn't go to school here, but I lived here. You know, and he's all like, all right, so you know the streets. I'm like, yeah, totally. And I was all like, yeah, I knew the streets. I'm all, oh, go to that building, make a right.
Yeah.
When you're in this building, make a left. When you see that old burned out car, that's, you know, make a left there. I knew everything by visual sight, but I didn't know the names of the streets. I also did not know that odd and even are different sides. I also did not know that blocks would run in like, you know, there's the 200 block, the 300 block, the 400 block. So if you looked at a number 432, 432, that means it's probably at the beginning of the block and it's going to be on that side. Right. So it was like, I didn't know any of that shit. So, and they hired me. And I remember there was a girl there who I never figured out who it was, but when she walked in, they were like, oh, hey, what's up? They knew her by name. And I think she had like red hair, and they were like, oh, the fastest girl in San Francisco. And she's like, yeah, just looking for a job. And they're like, oh, yeah, you know, we don't even need to do an interview. You got a job.
Yeah.
They knew who she was.
Yeah.
And then they look at me, and then he leaves the room. It's just me and her. And she looks at me. She goes, so what you riding? And I was like, oh, shit. And I
Oh
was like, I don't
no.
even have a bike. And I'm all, I don't know. I go like Schwinn 12 speed or something. And she like looked at me, did the,
Ugh,
okay.
normie.
Like she's just a little fuck poser, you know?
Yeah.
And I was so green.
That's
And
so funny.
I remember, so that winter, the winter of 91 was an El Nino. So my introduction into being a bike messenger in San
Yeah.
Francisco is I rode a fucking El Nino winter
That's
with
crazy.
no rain gear, nothing.
Oh no. That's so weird. So she was called like the fastest girl in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Did she turn out to be like some legendary bike rider or something?
she was. I guess she was like from at one time like.
Yeah.
And I've
Sounds like
so
she has some crazy
my
backstory.
girlfriend Megan was
Yeah.
also a bike messenger for about the same amount of time. We both were on the road at the same time. We found each other later in life,
Oh, cool.
but she was on the road at that time, and I remember asking her, "Who was it?"
Yeah.
And she goes, "I don't know, because that would have been just before me."
Yeah.
So we've not been able to figure out who she is.
Wow.
We have it nailed down to like 3 different girls who were on the
Yeah,
road.
the
There wasn't that
potential.
many. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Is I thought it would be easy to figure out because the ratio back then was like 1 to 5.
Yeah.
5 dudes to 1 girl on the road. It was mostly dudes,
Yeah.
because it was a little bit of a gnarly job.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
yeah.
know,
Out in
but-
the rain, out in the heat.
but it was
whatever.
yeah. We used to say the bicycle is my office and the city.
Yeah.
No, the bicycle is my desk and the city's my office.
That's pretty sick.
And I was like, and when I got this tattoo on my arm, that was me saying, I'm never going to have an office job. Never.
That's so
Never
dope.
going to do it,
Yeah.
So I went into this industry and it was all artists and musicians and like just a bunch of weirdos,
Yeah.
And later on, I remember I had a buddy of mine. His name was Jesse Perrin, and he was this dude I knew from another crew of my friends but he was from Hawaii, and he like came to town. He needed a place to stay, and we were friends. I'm like, come stay with me, and he'd been tattooing. I think at that point about 5 years, 4 years, some change, just under 5. So he came and he tattooed, and I remember he was trying to draw a flower for my girlfriend at the time, and I was watching him, and he's this pre-internet and all that stuff. It's like,
Yeah.
you had the when you made stencils, you had to hand cut your stencils. So I was
Yeah.
all like, man, give me that piece of paper. So I took the paper from him and I drew the flower and handed it back to him. And he just looked at me and he's all, what the hell are you doing riding a bike for a living? I'm like, I don't know, I'm just kind of stupid. And that's why we do this job. And he's all like, have you ever thought about tattooing? And I was like, I've thought about it. I go, I have no idea how to get into it.
Yeah.
And he's all, well, I can't really give you an apprenticeship because a proper apprenticeship, you should have a job at the end. He goes, but I'll kickstart you. He goes, if you're willing to learn. And I was like, fuck yeah, dude. Like, because at this point I think I've been messengering for like, it's probably about the 7-8 years. And I was getting tired of it.
Yeah.
I was like, I rode through like 3L fucking Ninos. Like, it was just
over
day in, day out, and it wasn't as much work and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, career change. And
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't want to be 30 years old and be a bike messenger. So I was in my late 20s. So I'm like, I better make a change now.
Yeah.
So he started teaching me, and I remember in the very beginning, it was like, I'm like, cool, when do I tattoo? And he's like, we're going to talk about keeping things clean and
Yeah.
this and that. And it took like months before I was making needles and doing all this shit that was so boring. I was like, let's get to the good shit, dude, and then the time came, goes, okay, we're going to get you a machine. I'm like, oh, sick. And I was all excited. We're sitting at a table like this, and he brought this box out. I was like, oh, this is it. This is it. And he takes the box and he flips it over and lifts it up. And all these parts come flying out and roll all across the table. And I was like, what the fuck? And he's all like, all right, build it. I'm like, I've never built a machine in my life. And he hands another machine. He sets it there and goes, look at that one and figure it out. I'm like, you're fucking kidding me.
That's so sick.
So I put the machine together. It did not run, and then he's like, okay, now take it apart. I goes, okay, now I'm going to show you how to do it. And I understood because I had already touched it and messed with it and did all these things. So I was like, oh, that's why you did that. So then he's like, okay, so then we're down like, it must have been like 7-8 months. And he's like, okay, we're going to do your first tattoo. And I'm like, oh, really? All right, cool. And I'm like, so what am I going to tattoo? Like an orange or like a chicken skin or like a melon or something? He goes, no. He goes, you got a lot of dumb friends. Bring one of your dumb friends over here. And I was like, what, really? And he's like, yeah. My very first one, I'm going to tattoo someone. And he's like, yeah. I was all like, he goes, look, man, is a melon going to tell you you're hurting it?
Yeah.
Is a slab of chicken going to move around
Yeah.
while you're working?
Yeah.
You know, is any of this stuff like, it's not real. Like that won't work.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, we need a person. Mind you, Jesse was taught by this dude, Clay Decker, both on Hawaii in the same neighborhood as Sailor Jerry. So their standards was all of the really old school.
Mm-hmm.
So they were just like, no, it's all straight up knuckle style. Like, nope, you're doing it this way.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, all right. So I found a dumb friend, still tattooing him to this day.
That's so sick.
Yeah, he gets the special price.
Yeah.
Because of, does he have that first tattoo? Fuck yeah, he still has that first tattoo. He loves to point it out. It's fucking shitty as hell. You know, you can still kind of tell what it is.
Yeah.
But like, he still has it, and I still tattoo him to this day.
That's a homie.
Like Ben Thompson.
Shouts out
Also
Ben
a bike
Thompson.
messenger from DC.
Shouts out.
So, yes. So so I brought him in, and I tattooed him in the middle of a fucking party at the house. So there's people everywhere falling all around. But one of the things I got from being a messenger was I was able to tune things out around me.
Yeah.
And I still have this skill to this day where I've had people stand next to me and almost yell, and I don't hear them. I just tune it out.
Huh.
So I'm in the middle of this party, and my first like couple of years of tattooing, I wore a bandana because the sweat pouring off me. It was like it was so scary. It was so frightening because you're just like, and he was like, you're not going to do good tattoos for a while. Just
accept the fact.
Just accept the fact. Just do it. Just do it. Give them away. Give them away. Trade and give away. And he goes, you got the perfect group. You have a whole group of bike messengers, who don't give a fuck like you.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Yeah.
And he was right. So, unfortunately, right after my first fucking tattoo, something happened back in Hawaii. And he's like, I'm sorry, I got to go back to Hawaii.
Dang.
So he like left me. And I remember his parting words. We're still friends to this day. He's now on the mainland. He was also a big white dude who spoke pidgin. So he sounded, you close your eyes and you thought you were talking to a Samoan.
Yeah.
You open your eyes and it's like a big white dude. I'm like, whoa, that's
funny.
weird. So he like was like, get an apprenticeship. You need to get an apprenticeship. Otherwise, no one's going to take you seriously. He left. I was very arrogant. And I'm like, I got this.
Yeah.
I'm just going to make this happen. So I tattooed, technically, a scratcher for a few years. And I just tattooed all my messenger friends. And over time, I began to notice that my tattoos were not advancing, if not going backwards. And I was like, what's happening? What's going on? And I had a buddy of mine, Jason, who worked at Picture Machine. And I remember going over there, and he was finishing his apprenticeship. And I met him through another like messenger I knew. And I bought I remember buying a machine off him. And, I got this Michael Malone, which was like one of my still prized machines.
Yeah.
And I was all like, hey man, like, can I ask you some questions? And first thing I said is like, I feel like my tattoos are getting worse. And he's like, well, duh. I'm like, what do you mean, duh? And he's like, well, you're not immersed.
Yeah.
He goes, you need to put everything into it. You need to put your life, your soul, live, breathe, eat shit tattoos, dude. Like, you need to be in a shop. You're not in a shop. You're trying to do it on your own. Some people can do it. They might be naturally talented, pick it up, and off they go. But not everybody. And you're one of those not everybody's. So he goes, I would get an apprenticeship. He goes, you have to. And I'm like, but I've already been doing this for a while. And he's like, doesn't matter. You're still back where you were, even though it's been a few years. And I was like, you're right. So I had just split up with, at that time, my wife. And I was like, I think I just turned like 30, and I was all like, how am I gonna grovel at 30? So I was all like, well, fuck it, you make it or break it.
Yeah.
Now's the time. I was tired of being a messenger. I was a motorcycle messenger at the time, so I was anywhere from Sacramento to Santa Cruz. I was like bicycle, but
Yeah.
like way faster in
Yeah.
traffic, and it was even more dangerous. And I was all like, okay, I have to quit being a messenger and do this. So I got out of the business. I became a bicycle mechanic, and then put my little book together and started. I was like, I'm just going to go door to door. I don't know what else to do. I get tattooed by people. I know people. So I went to like people I knew and got all the doors slammed in my face.
Yeah.
To come to realize that San Francisco is one of the hardest cities to get an apprenticeship in.
Oh yeah.
And they're like, you're in a small pond with the biggest of the fish of the industry.
Yeah, dude. How many legends come out of San Francisco?
Yeah. So I'm all like, to me, what I heard was, so you're going to do this. And I'm all like, well, I'm going to try harder because if I make it here, I can make it anywhere. So I went ahead and I kept, it's funny because all these people, some people who slammed their doors in their face, some people were really nice to me and were like, you've never worked in a shop. And I'm like, does it show? And they're like, yeah, it shows. I'm all like, yeah, you're right. I've never worked in a shop.
Yeah.
I'll scrub your floors.
Yeah.
I'll fucking clean the bathroom. I'll answer the phones. They're like, yeah, sorry, we already got counter help, But they were really nice to me. And it's funny, those people that were all nice to me, I'm now friends with, which was really kind of crazy because they were well into their careers, and I was behind them. But now, like years and years later, like I remember when I finally got in, which I'll get to, when I got into it, I was at working my very first convention as the counter help. And one of them walked up and saw me and they're like, oh my God, how are you here? And I'm like, oh, I'm apprenticing under her. And they're like, oh, Miss Mickey, fuck yeah, dude, you made it right on. And they were very supportive.
That's dope.
Right?
Yeah.
Because they knew that I sat there and beat the streets for like a fucking year. Just asking and asking everyone. I remember like FTW in Oakland, like, Jason there, I was all like begging him. And he's like, bro, I just opened this place.
Yeah.
I made him their very first t-shirts and everything. And he's like, I'm sorry. He's like, this is, I have this to deal with. I can't show someone how to tattoo because the process is long.
Yeah.
So luckily for me, what happened was it was just, I met this woman who's my mentor now, through some other friends, and we were hanging out in the Mission District and playing pool and everything. And I became friends with her, but I didn't quite knew who she was. I just knew she was this elusive kind of person, heavily tattooed. And eventually someone was all like, oh yeah, that's Miss Mickey. And I'm like, yeah, I know. And they're like, no, she tattoos. I'm like, oh, she does? And they're like, yeah, she's at Sacred out in Oakland. So I was all like, oh, really? So I was like thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe I can somehow, and skirt my way in there. So I went out to the shop and I went through her portfolio and I fucking shit my pants because I was like, oh my God, this is like the stuff I see in the magazines.
Yeah.
Because back then you were like always going through the magazine, what's the newest style? There was no internet or nothing, so you're like, it was all about the tattoo magazines. And I've also found a couple of magazines with spreads of her and other things. And she was one of the early females to travel, United States and Europe, like the earliest of the Americans, like going over to Europe. And she's tattooed with some of the best. So I was all like, I turned to my buddy. I'm like, dude, don't tell her I tattoo. And he's all like, what, really? And I'm like, don't tell her. And he's like, all right. Because a long time ago, scratchers, like I used to be, you get your hands broke.
Dang.
Someone finds you scratching in their town, they'll fucking kick the shit out of you and take your stuff away.
I imagine because it gets competitive, right?
It's competitive. Well, you're also fucking people up.
Yeah.
And it's making a bad name for tattooing.
Yeah.
And I was like trying not to do that, but I was also trying, you know?
The weird thing about that, sorry to interrupt the story.
No.
The weird thing about that backlash of being a scratcher, a lot of people that I've heard who are really good at tattooing, all started off that way. A lot of people more or
Yep.
less start tattooing on their friends or on themselves, and they learn, and then they get good enough, and then they go to tattoo shops. It's like
Yeah.
it's an unavoidable way. And I know they have courses for tattooing now, but I also understand that yeah, exactly, that's frowned upon.
Frowned
So
upon.
like it's a weird medium of like you kind of have to keep it hush hush till you're good enough.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
imagine there's
know
places
I
that
know a
understand.
lot of people, and they all. I found out afterwards probably why people were being nice,
Yeah,
but took that path that I
yeah,
did.
yeah.
Probably I took a little longer to get there.
Hmm.
You know, I always like to say I did a lot of the don'ts of tattooing,
Yeah. Well, that's
of
also a way
being
to learn.
tattooed and tattooing. Like,
Yeah, but
you
that's like
know,
one of the best ways to learn is
well, yeah.
learning your
I mean,
mistakes.
because there's going to be things from all that time, like doing tattoo parties and stuff before. Like I was in a shop,
Yeah.
like tattooing in parties and things like this. Like I had to like make things. Like, oh, I don't have an armrest. I'll take that paper towel roll, this saran wrap, and that chair,
Hmm.
and I'll makeshift this little thing, and then a person can put their arm on it.
Hmm.
And I'd be at a convention, and someone's like, "Oh, I don't have this." I'm all, "Here, check this out." I'm like,
Do 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 do.
I whip it out and hand it to them. They're like, "Whoa, what the fuck?" And I'm all like, "Yeah,
Kind of
you
learn.
know, tattoo parties.
Yeah.
You know, like
That's so
tattoo
sick.
parties. If you were a kitchen wizard like me,
Yeah.
you had to make do with a lot of stuff. You had to figure it out.
Yeah.
You know, so
Yeah. And there's a
there
valuable skill
was
in that.
something that came out of it,
Hmm.
you know, eventually, and it
Yeah.
was the fact that I could like
Be resourceful.
be resourceful.
Yeah.
You know,
That's interesting to think about it. Did you? I'm gonna tell you something right now. So, I'm sorry.
oh,
I really wanted to get into tattooing at one point in my life.
yeah,
Literally after you gave me my tattoo, I loved it. I fell in love with. I'd have more tattoos right now if I didn't open up my skate shop and fall into debt and have to pay so much money to the IRS now that
oh,
every penny I pay goes straight to paying off my debts. Like, so tattoos are non-existent for me right now, especially having a daughter. But
yeah,
I always hear stories about people with their like getting almost like their first tattoo machine or how like a tattoo machine falls into their hand. It's always such a weird story.
yes,
Um, I wanted to get into tattooing, and I know I did not have the time to actually put it in, and I could not take the chance of going to like trying to find an internship or anything like that. I never tattooed anybody, but I did buy a machine at one point.
mm-hmm.
I got the classic Amazon Dragon Hawk.
Sweet,
It's a $99.99 deal.
mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? 5 packs of needles, beginner's ink, and that that part's like
Did you
almost.
tattoo yourself?
I have not tattooed myself.
Oh,
I
okay.
still have the machine tucked away in my closet, untouched. I practiced on things. I practiced on oranges. I learned how to make
Yeah.
skulls and flowers. I got used
Perfect.
to. I got because I'm not a good artist either, but I love the medium.
Right.
That I think that's what attracted me to it was like the idea of having something permanent and the connection that I know it sounds so cheesy to say, but I love the idea of like older tribes earning their tattoos or it's signifying something more powerful.
Yeah.
And like for me, it sounds weird to say, but getting a tattoo to me was more of appreciating my ancestors
Yeah.
because a lot of times when I read things about tattoos, it was villainized because colonizers came and they saw them with tattoos and they were considered savages, and it placed the thing on a culture like Hispanic culture, like you parents are still like don't get a tattoo.
Oh yeah, that was
Even though generations before that,
yeah.
everyone had tattoos.
My
and
mom.
tribes
My
and
mom
stuff.
was from Nicaragua,
Yeah.
so like when I came home, well, when she figured out,
Hmm.
by then I had 5, 6 tattoos.
Yeah.
And when she figured it out, it was the dragon on the arm.
Yeah.
And she was all, in my country, only whores and thieves get
Yeah.
tattooed.
Like there's this crazy thing to it.
Yeah.
But like I love the idea. It's almost not only is it rebellious acting like your current societal thing, but it was almost like a fuck you to the colonization
Yeah.
in my eyes.
And here's the funniest part is in the 1500s, all those people that were going to the indigenous places to get tattooed
Hmm.
were the extreme wealthy and rich.
Yeah, it's
They were the
it
only
is such
ones
a weird thing.
in like Europe
Mm-hmm.
who had tattoos,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a sign of like, look what I can do.
Yeah, luxury and like,
There's luxury. Yeah,
like
you had to be like, we're talking like dukes and
yeah,
people who were like within the things. You know,
yeah.
they were like, and they were tattooed head to toe.
Mm-hmm.
They would just go get blasted.
That's a trip to think about. But the thing I wanted to tell you, it was like it almost manifested for me. I told my dad that like, cause he was like, "You got a tattoo?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, "You gonna get more?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like if I can get as many as I want, I will. And I told him like, "Dad, I want to try to learn how to tattoo." And this is like 3 years ago, like when you gave my tattoos, and he was like, "Why not do it?" Like he's always wanted to get tattoos, but he never got them because he had kids and he didn't have the money and stuff
Right,
like that.
right.
It's like you can tattoo me, and it's like he's just being a super supportive dad, right? And I haven't ordered a machine yet, and I get a call from him, and I totally thought he was just being a good dad and trying to support me with whatever I do because he always bought my T-shirts I made. He was there the day opening of my skate shop. He's a good man, and he's like, "Hey, I found something. You want to come and check it out?" And so I go over to his house, and he shows me this bag, and inside the bag is a tattoo machine, and I totally thought he bought it to support me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Dad, where'd you get it?" It's like some random skinhead probably threw it in our orchards where we work. I'm like, "There's no way." It's like, "Yeah, look," and he shows me a tattoo machine with a swastika carved into it, and a pair of glasses with swastikas carved into it, with fresh needles, wrapped ink, like everything. And I was like, "Holy shit!" Like the universe just gave me this tattoo machine for whatever reason. And I never tattooed anyone with it. I didn't use it at all, but I still have it as just like a piece of like, if you really think about it, the universe will almost like bring it your way.
Manifestation.
Manifestation. And from that point on, for at least like 6 or 7 months, like every night, I practiced on the orange peel or something with that machine.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I used my Dragon Hawk. I never even actually used the Dragon Hawk. So it was like the Dragon Hawk was, I think it was a rotary one. And
It was like a pen.
it was,
I think Dragon Hawks are pens.
yeah, I think it wasn't an expensive one, so it was like a cheap rotary,
Mm-hmm.
and the other one was a coil. But I try to get used to the idea of using the coil. It's so much shakier,
Yes.
and so I use that one to practice a lot, and it just, I don't ever think I ever see myself becoming a tattoo artist, but I think I love the medium enough
Right.
to practice it in my own home, and then if eventually I want to tattoo myself, I'll try it out.
That's where we all start.
Yeah.
Oh, except for me, I tattooed Ben Thompson.
Yeah.
But afterwards, I tattooed like myself. So
Yeah.
my all the tops of my legs,
You did that
I
on
put
your own.
tattoos.
There's
Yeah,
so many
well,
times
that's
I
what he told me
debated.
to do.
Yeah,
Number two was this one. Was an old Sailor Jerry
that's so sick.
tattoo, and it looks like I got it tattooed in like the 1940s because I blew out every fucking line.
But yeah, it's always something I wanted to try, and like, I even remember when you guys were hiring at Red Room for a desk person.
Yes.
I would almost apply to that. Like the only thing that stopped me was that I needed a full time job, and I think it was like 13 hours a week. And I know it
Yeah.
said no guarantee for an apprenticeship or anything. It's like I didn't care.
Yeah,
I just wanted to be around the environment.
Yeah.
And
Well,
all
that's how it starts. So
Yeah.
we have a shop apprentice right now.
Mm-hmm.
This guy Jaime,
Mm-hmm.
and he's Utah Latino,
Yeah, yeah.
and he came as a counter help. And I remember him telling me, he's like, "I want to learn how to tattoo," and I was like, "All right." Rule number one: shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Shut your mouth. And the rule number two: start drawing every day.
Yeah.
Every fucking day, you have to start drawing.
Mm-hmm.
And in a year, if you're still here and everything works out, you never know.
Yeah.
Your timing might be good, but you have to jump through these hoops first.
Mm-hmm.
Then he did. He listened to what I said, and he drew, and I showed him. I realized he did not know how to draw that well,
Yeah.
but it doesn't mean anything. Like, my drawing style completely changed when I started tattooing. There's some other tattooers I remember, they were just, we called them tracers.
Yeah.
They didn't know how to draw. They could trace, they could tattoo like a motherfucker. But say, the drop of a hat, here's a piece of paper, draw out of your head draw me a pig. Uh, they would have a hard time.
Yeah.
You know, they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
You know, but you have plenty of reference, you're fine.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what he did. And then sure enough, you know, like the owner, because I can't give him the apprenticeship
Yeah.
because it's not my shop.
It's not your place to
Like
do it.
the first guy, Jesse's like, I can't give you this apprenticeship. So you could say I like primed him.
Yeah.
Said, do this, do this, do this.
Give him the advice, you know?
And I was all, yep. And I was like, I steered him in the right direction. And when the Ty and Kane owner was like, hey, man, what do you think about him? And I was like, yeah, I've actually been getting him ready for you.
That's so sick.
So he's like, cool. So like, funny enough, now I'm teaching him the stuff. And it's
Really?
and I've only helped out 2 other people in my entire career.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them were partway through an apprenticeship. And something happened. Like my friend Allie, she works at FTW Oakland, full circle again.
That's so great.
The guy who was teaching her got shot
Oh, shit.
and lived. Got shot in the back of his head, Devin Blood. Me and him worked together at Sacred in the early 2000s. And the night he was over Oakland and he was moving out of Oakland, and someone broke into their warehouse and they thought it was the weed one. The weed one was next door, and they freaked out and fired blindly in the door. And he had his back against it, caught a bullet in the back of his head. So that her apprenticeship went out the window. And my friend Matt House, he was going to pick it up and help her finish, and then he scored a job at Spider Murphy's in San Rafael, which is we call a career shop. So you know, that's like you get a job there, your career is set.
Yeah.
And he was like, I'm sorry, I can't teach you.
Can't pass up.
I can't pass this up. So she was just left out in the lurch, and she was literally like 3 months from finishing. So like me and my friend Eric were working at Mom's on Haight Street, and we took on our wing. So, okay, what do you know? And like she could draw, she could do all this stuff, but she didn't know how to make needles. So we taught her how to make needles. We showed her some machine stuff. And said, you know, like, there's not much else we can do. Like, let's just find you a job. So we called our homies out in Vallejo, and we're like, all right, you know, go talk to Pops and see if it goes. And I tried to help her as much as I could, gave her, you know, said, just call me whenever you need that, you know. And the second one is my friend Zach. Both of these people I showed, like, both tattoo today, you
That's
know,
sick.
and do very well. And the other one was Zach, because he was a sculpture guy, came out of SF Art Institute and really wanted to learn. He was our counter help, but I would see all his drawings and his sculptures, and everything he touched was just like, holy shit, dude, like you're diving into this all the way, you know. And he was the other person I considered and started to kind of show him when I was at Mom's, but I quit Mom's and went to Let It Bleed. And Eric there is like, we can't have an apprentice here. Like, we just opened the shop. That doesn't look good.
Yeah.
When the shop's been here for like 10 years, then you can do it.
Yeah.
You know, but as a new shop, that's a no-no. And I was like, yeah, you're right. So I was like, sorry, Zach. So my bad. You know, I kind of started getting the ball rolling. But the good thing was then everyone at the shop, he became kind of a shop apprentice. And that's what Jaime is now. So he doesn't have like a one mentor.
And that's honestly sounds like a much better way to learn, because you learn all these different
Kinda,
styles from people.
It is and it isn't, because we all tattoo a little different.
Yeah. Everyone has
You
their own unique
know,
style.
so we have all our different styles. So I think right now, you know, he's kind of adhering to like 2 of us, you know, and 2 to 3 of us. And our shop's like set up, the youngers are on one side and the olders are on this side. So he stays on our side of the shop for obvious reasons. And I'm like, is there stuff to learn from those guys? Fuck yeah. That'd be like when you met me early in the days when I was doing all the don'ts.
Yeah.
You know, like, you know, yes, you can learn from the don'ts. You can learn from the mistakes. You can see the things that other people do and say, don't do that.
Yeah.
You know, there's things I pointed out. See that? See what just happened? Don't do that. And he's like, okay. You know, like, and he's watched me turn down tattoos, you know. He's been there like the whole way, and he's like a little sponge, and that's the way you have to be.
Yeah.
But like, and I told him, just don't do what I did. And if you're fucking around with some shit at your house, stop it.
Yeah.
You know, stop tattooing, start drawing,
Yeah.
because that's the most important thing. So, I gave him some painting lessons, and he's already excelled.
That's so
He's
sick.
excelled like almost overnight.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And it was because he had no technique.
Yeah.
But he's like, you didn't show me. I'm like, I know. Well, why didn't you? I want you to struggle.
Yeah. I mean,
I want you to like
if you really
try
want
to
it,
figure it out.
yeah, and if you really want it,
Yeah.
you're gonna figure that out.
Yeah,
I
so-
remember I have a book. I still have the book, and what I did is on my breaks at work and my free time at home, I'd go to the book and I would trace the line on that rule paper, trying to give myself a steadier hand.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And I've gone through that whole book, and I still have it. And I would trace all those lines, and then I'd practice shapes. And I didn't work with shading or anything like that, but I just practiced bold shapes and simple shapes until I could do it without thinking. But it's fundamentals are important, and I think like that goes like everything though.
That's everything.
Everything,
That's
fundamentals
everything.
and technique.
And that's what I told him. I was like, look, man, even if you don't get an apprenticeship, you're from here, you're going to walk out with some skill.
Yeah.
A skill you can use for anything. And to me, that's the most important.
Yeah.
Before you even pick up a machine.
Yeah.
Like I've known guys who came out of some like the career shop. There was someone there who he worked there for 4 years. His apprenticeship was so long, the longest one I've ever heard. Like 4 fucking years before.
It's all high school.
But he had him he had him painting flash.
Yeah.
And I remember even before he started tattooing, I saw his flash, which flash is like artwork you see on the wall. When you walk into a tattoo shop, you're like, I'll take 4B.
Yeah.
That's like, we call that flash. So his flash was like beyond what I was doing. I was all like, holy shit. I'm all, you painted this? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, are you tattooing yet? And he's like, no. And I'm all, like, when you start tattooing, dude, you're just going to go.
That's sick.
And that's why he did that.
Yeah.
So when he did start tattooing, I felt like mine, like, my friend Little D told me, he goes, 10 years, bro. Unless you're naturally gifted, 10 years. So I remember like those first 10 years, I was always,
Yeah.
yeah. I still grumble at all my tattoos. But that dude, like, literally, like, it felt like a year, less than a year. And his shit was just like, holy shit, so good.
That's so sick.
But, homeboy trained him.
Yeah.
It forced him into his aesthetics and,
Yeah.
and taught him all these things while he's doing that. So that's when with Jaime, I was all like, you're painting, bro.
Yeah.
From here on out. And he's like, well, how long? Until I say stop.
Yeah, I mean, it's good.
Yeah.
You get what's good for
Yeah.
man. Like,
Well, yeah. It's just
hell
like,
yeah.
you're just going to you're going to do that from here to even when you're not around me.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, like, I draw every single day. If it's not on an iPad, it's on paper. I mean, when you first came in, there was a sketchbook that's sitting right over there.
Yeah.
Because I'm watching a girl who sits next to me, and she's been breaking out a sketchbook and drawing. And I'm like, you know what? I used to do that. I have piles of those books laying around. I used to do early in my career, and I don't do it anymore. And I'm like, I should get back into that.
Yeah. Keep
Because
yourself.
that just keeps that going.
Yeah. Keep your brain sharp.
Yep, keeps it going, Because even when I don't know, like, I pick up a thing and I used to draw like every day on paper. So I'm going to try to get back into that right now. But I remember, what am I going to draw? And I don't know. And I would just start doing circles,
Yeah.
a series of circles. And just because I was trying to learn how to become a loose drawer. I was always like such a rigid drawer early in my days. I had to draw it perfect right off the bat. I'd see those people that could do that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to be
Yeah.
that person. I couldn't do it. I
Yeah.
still can't do it. But like a camera, I can focus way out and start super loose. And then all of a sudden, start drawing one of the doodles. Doodles are amazing. Like on the phone style doodle stuff. When you're just sketching, and that's what I'll start doing. And then all of a sudden it's like my old Toyota truck out there.
Yeah.
The oil starts to warm up and then the engine starts to calm down and it starts to hum. And then it's like, oh, I got an idea.
Yeah. I used to on that same book I would do circles. I draw practice hand-eye coordination with my circles, and then I really like drawing frogs. So
Yeah.
like my art book is like I'm not a good artist at all. I suck at art, but I love
Do it
doodling.
every day. Yeah.
And um, my book is full of frogs doing things in an American traditional style. Like I have this one Virgin Mary frog. I got Cupid frog. I got frog with a musket. Just I love the frog dynamic of that kind of stuff. It's
There was a
frog
trend
with a
in
bucket
tattooing
hat.
the past few, like 5 years. There was
Frogs
frogs and
everywhere.
toads everywhere.
Oh my
Everyone
God.
was doing them.
That's so sick.
So it was really fun to watch. Like
Yeah.
the ones I just saw recently on Instagram where someone put them on their kneecaps and he was able to make his kneecaps
Yeah.
and made them look like they were riveting.
That's so
And I was
funny.
all, oh, that's such a good idea.
Yeah. Well, how do
And
you
every
feel
time I think, I don't know who thought of it.
What do you-
Someone thought of it.
What's like the I don't know how you probably get asked a lot, but what's like the dumbest tattoo? I guess there's no like I get depends how you look at it. There's no dumb tattoo. I mean there probably are some
There is.
dumb tattoos, but like what's one that you've done on someone and you're like, dude, I really wish I didn't do that on you.
Most of the time it's doing like girlfriend boyfriend names.
Yeah.
I would feel that is my biggest. So there's been the other ones were like, tattooing someone that was in their 70s and like they wanted to top their arm, like,
Yeah,
and
like-
the skin gets very thin,
Like it's
and
not
you can
gonna
tell.
work.
You can usually touch it and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I did it, and it just lines blew out,
Yeah.
and I was all like, I just felt so bad.
Yeah.
Misspelled tattoos. Most of the time, their fault. The last two I think I did were my fault.
Oh
You
no.
know, it happens. I mean,
Yeah.
most tattooers can't spell.
Yeah.
I flat out tell everybody when they give me words, I'm like, I'm suck at spelling.
You know,
I was drawing.
yeah. This
Yeah.
This
Well,
one's
then
spelled right.
and the way I do it to everybody's always the same. And I hand them the drawings. I go through it, make sure it's spelled right.
Yeah.
Go through it, make sure it's spelled right. Put the stencil on one more time, make sure, because what happens is that people get so excited to get tattooed
Yeah. That they forget.
that they forget. And I've had people spell their own kids' names wrong.
Oh no.
And I tattooed them, and they're like, "Oh, that's wrong." What do you mean that's wrong? You spelled my kid's name wrong. I don't know how to spell your kid's name. I'm sorry. And then I'd pull out the paper that they wrote it on and go, look. And they're like, oh, fuck.
That's so funny.
Like, that's happened to me 2 times
Oh
where
my
someone
gosh.
spelled their own kid's name wrong.
That's hilarious.
And I had to charge them more because I had to cover it up because I had already did it.
Yeah.
And it was coloring in the tattoo. And they're like, it's wrong.
That's wild.
The other thing is there was a fad of like people wanting to be books.
Oh, where they get like the giant scriptures.
Huge, like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
all the way down their ribs. Or
I know the common ones like a scripture,
Yeah.
Saint Michael Archangel.
Oh, yeah. That's all the cops.
Yeah, Cerebrus.
Yep.
Cerebrus is a common one. The Doberman is a very common one. I loved it anyways. I was like, fuck it, I'm getting a Doberman.
Oh, I like the
I want that
Dobermans,
one
though.
so
That was
fucking
like, that was very like,
I love it. I love it. I
like
feel like
late
80s,
80s, early
villain.
90s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I've always
fuck with
liked the
it.
Doberman. I'm glad they're kind of coming back around. I have
You
a
know,
couple of my line drawing.
I'm almost. You know how you drew me the first Doberman and he looked all cute, and I was like, no, you need to make him angrier.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
I kind of wish I got the cuter Doberman now. Like I thought that'd be hilarious to have that. Like,
Yeah,
I luckily have no regrets on my tattoos.
like salt and pepper,
Yeah, dude. Like this one's still one of my favorites. My family hates this one so much, and I love it.
Is it a kite? What was it?
It was
that
from the Above the Influence commercial,
was
like
it.
the
Okay,
anti-drug, and no one has this tattoo.
we did? No.
And I'm very happy I went with this one because this is I went back to my Instagram, and when I was in high school, I put up a photo. I was like, this is gonna be one of my first tattoos, and I have it now, and it's my favorite one. It's my daughter
Awesome.
loves it too, so like that's a plus. She says her favorite one is the Cupid doll.
The Cupid doll?
Yeah, and I was like, a lot of people when they ask me, a lot of people like the work that you've done on this, and I always get compliments on it, and
Oh, good.
I like to let them know. I was like, I didn't even plan to get the little baby. I think you added that, and I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
What, the Cupid?
Yeah, because I only wanted the heart, and you're like, what do you think about the baby? Then? And I was like, yeah, fuck it, let's do it.
Did I already have it drawn? I don't even know half the stuff I say.
Dude, I just like I said anatomical heart, and you're like, all right, and it's like what do you think about a Cupid added to it? I'm like,
Oh
and
yeah,
I was like, fuck
I
it.
probably said a cherub, and I
Yeah,
switched it to a
yeah.
Cupid.
And I was like, do
Probably
it.
I was having a thing like I want to draw a Cupid right
Yeah,
now.
you were feeling it. You're feeling
Yeah.
that vibe, and it was like such a classic one too. And like, I get
Well,
compliments on that one a lot too.
that
'Cause,
comes from a lot of tattooers back in the day
mhm.
worked very closely with carnies.
Oh wow,
So
this is
if you read
carny
about
world.
Bowery stuff,
Yeah.
like that was my attraction to like kind of like a tattoo is like,
Hmm.
I love that kind of lifestyle.
Yeah.
And to be a barker was to sell.
Hmm.
And it was one of the early things I was taught was sell a tattoo,
Hmm.
and I remember my mentor telling me, he's like, most people kind of don't know what they want,
Hmm.
and you could almost tell them,
What they want. Yeah.
what to get,
Yeah. Guide them.
and that's exactly what I realized is what she meant by that was like, you just have to say like, no, like this is classic, won't go out of style,
Hmm.
like, and it's good, and
Yeah.
they usually, I would say 98% of the time they're happy with it.
Yeah. Dude, it's
You
sick.
know,
There's like for sure. I like to go with the flow, and I loved how all of them turned out. There are tattoos where I personally want to be a specific way. Like I still want to get my cat Jojo on this side
mm-hmm.
with a tinfoil hat on.
Yes,
I think that would be so fucking sick to have, and like that one I'm trying to visualize how that would look, And that one's like I want him with his fangs out and like, there's some tattoos that are just, like you just want them that specific way.
yeah, no, and that's
Yeah.
fine, but that's our job.
Yeah, yeah, true. I do see a lot of times where like some tattoo artists get upset when someone comes in and they want a specific tattoo.
Yes, because they're not versatile.
Oh, okay. Do you think they're just not confident in their skill level to be like, shit, this person wants a
Yeah,
Japanese
I mean, there
traditional
could
that I
be
can't do?
lots of different reasons. There's some people I feel like they'll do stuff and they're like, no, I only want to do this style.
Mm.
I've worked with some people that had huge anxieties
Mm-hmm.
around walk-in tattoos. And the walk-in style is like the person off the street, and
Yeah.
they hand you a bubble gum wrapper. And
Yeah.
I want that tattooed on me, and they're like, and they don't know how to do it, or they're not confident, or that's not in the style I do. Like,
Yeah.
and as a street shop tattooer, the way I was brought up was like, you have to be able to try to right on schedule.
Keeping that in.
Yeah, is you have to be able to at least mimic all styles.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta be.
And
chameleon.
I tell everyone too, it's like, so yeah, I don't do like super traditional Japanese tattoos.
Yeah.
Like there's so many aspects and things that have to go together in the way you do it to make it correct.
Mm-hmm.
I go, I'll give you my version that's incorrect, but
Yeah.
it's a version, and that's how I'll explain it to them. So
That's
the same comes in, it's just like, and I don't understand like why don't people just tell other people that?
Yeah.
One of the other guys at the shop, I've been really trying to push that on him, like, and
Make
it's
sure.
been working for him.
That's good.
That he's like, oh, that's cool. Do you want to check this out though?
That's a dope way,
And that's what
yeah.
I do. There's like my trick is that I will draw their tattoo exactly how they say, and then I'll draw the way I think,
Yeah, and you would give me alternatives.
and I might come with a third,
Yeah.
and it's different, maybe a mash between theirs and mine, and go, okay, here's yours. Oh, by the way, I did this and this, and they'll look at theirs, and then they'll look at mine, and they're like, I didn't think of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know, but this is what I do day in, day out. So I did think of it, and this is what I want to offer you, and it'll make me happier to tattoo this. I'll be just as happy
Yeah.
to tattoo yours, but I'd be happier
Yeah.
to do this because
Yeah.
now I'll feel good when you walk out the door.
That's sick.
So
Hell yeah. Is there anything you want to say? Or any advice you'd like to give anyone who's trying?
well, anyone who's trying is, well, first of all, it's a saturated world.
Yeah.
So draw first.
Yeah.
Paint first, because at least you'll walk out with a skill if tattooing doesn't work, I feel like there was a huge surge where tattooing really was super, super popular.
Yeah, it probably has to do with how much they air tattoo TV shows.
Who knows? Like, that's the things, like, people ask me, do you watch those shows, Mom? What do you do for a living? They're like, oh, plumber? Do you watch shows about plumbers? I'm like, no. And I'm like, exactly.
You know,
I
that's
don't
funny
watch those shows,
because
dude.
skateboarding's one of those ones like where like if you're a skateboarder, you're like constantly watching things about
Oh, I
skateboarding.
still watch videos on skateboarding.
Yeah, I love.
I have
Watching.
like 3 friends that we switch stuff. And like,
Yeah.
I think only one of us out of 3 still skates. And
That's so sick.
but anytime someone does some new crazy trick, oh my God, did you see that?
They're still doing it. They're
Like,
still
it's like
doing it.
still like evolving. Like,
Yeah, it's
blowing my mind. You
it's a
know?
crazy thing, but
But no, with tattooing, it's like I had a friend of mine, my friend Little D, I was talking about. He was on Ink Masters.
Oh, wow.
Season 8, I think. I've never watched it.
Mhm.
I actually do want to watch it. I do want to see it.
yeah,
I want to see him on there.
I remember it popping up as a kid on TV.
Yeah, so
And-
it's like this was like season 8.
Whoa.
So it's been, it's probably like what, like probably 4 or 5 years ago now.
Mm-hmm.
Like you go to the shows and they're all there with their giant banners.
Yeah,
and,
yeah, yeah.
You know, I feel like if you're on the show, even if you don't make it, like
You get that
you're gonna
advertisement.
you get the advertisement.
Yeah.
But
'Cause
they
didn't just pick up
fucking
random people,
own
right?
you. They own you.
Really?
Like me and Little D would go out, and he'd put on this hat, and he'd put on this big pennant that he wore,
Mm-hmm.
and this vest. And I didn't think about it the first time. The second time we went out again, and then he put it back on, and then he did it a third time, and we were like going to a convention in Tennessee, and I was like, "Yo, man, what's up with the outfit? Like you keep wearing the same fucking thing." I'm like, I kind of the hat I get,
Yeah.
but the pennant and the vest, and he's like, "Oh, bro," he's like, "I was on that show," and I'm like, "Yeah," and he's like, "So I'm under by contract for the next." I think he said like 1 year or 2 years.
Oh my God.
I have to wear this outfit when I'm in public.
No way.
I was all, what? And he's like, yeah. And he's like, it's in case I get a call back or if I'm recognized on the street. I have to look like what I did
That's a
on the
trip.
show.
Wow. And some of those dudes, from what I saw, look crazy. Like they looked crazy. Like,
Yeah,
Did
so
they,
they-
I don't know if they dressed themselves up. That was like my first inclination of what a tattoo artist looked like. It was
Oh.
always someone who had crazy, whether it was good or bad, style. Like,
Yes, yes.
But I was also used to it because the skateboarding world was like that too. That people would have crazy styles.
Yeah.
Like people would dress a specific way. And
Well, look at early '90s and the giant
Yeah.
baggy pants.
oh
and
yeah, dude's making a
little
comeback.
tiny wheels.
I got these bad boys at Goodwill, and I'm like, this is the baggiest pants I've
You're-
worn since high school.
Hey, just wear some Ben Davis,
Yeah.
man. That's what I grew up in.
Oh
Those things
yeah,
were huge.
yeah. Ben Davis is popular.
Yeah.
But
Still is in my world.
that's right now, I think.
But I just
skaters-
never let it go. That was just because all the cholos in my neighborhood.
Yeah, I think a
Yeah.
lot of skaters are wearing like Carhartt's trying to do a thing. I don't know. I've kind of been out of it since I like stopped the shop. Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's kind of hard for me to even step on a skateboard without feeling a little emotional about it. 'Cause
Yeah.
It's just like it's a piece of me that I love so much. But I kind of like been staying away from the sales version of skateboarding. It's kind of like I've gotten like a bad taste in my mouth. And I'm like, I'm kind of done with that.
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like anything out there.
Yeah.
Like tattooing. That industry has been flooded
Yeah.
by non-tattooers selling stuff to tattooers.
Whoa. Like
So
corporate
I always
kind of
buy.
thing?
I always buy from artist-owned companies.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's the way it was taught to me a long time ago. Like
Yeah. Support your own.
support your own or support within. And some of those early companies, they were the very first ones, but they
Yeah.
were run
There's
by
certain things
tattooers.
like you can't control. Like I'm trying to think of brands that are not in that field, but they've made some things like Yamaha. I don't think they've made a tattoo machine, but Yamaha is one of those companies that just like makes multiple things. And
Yeah.
sometimes they're a hit. Like they've just
Yeah.
they knew how to make a keyboard and a dirt bike. Like who would have thought Yamaha could do that? Like,
yeah.
I know there's companies out there like that, but like I think with like tattooing and like with skateboarding, it's really hard for them. The consumer still gets them. Don't get me wrong, but I think it's if you're really into that medium, it's you kind of see the pitfalls that they're doing.
Yeah, well, they're just leeches in the
Yeah.
industry,
Yeah, and I
and
know
people like go for it, and people want maybe they grew up on those shows and they see the glitz, the glamour, the
Yeah.
lights, and they're like, and they're like, oh, that's part of it. That's what I want to be.
Yeah.
So then someone says, oh, you want to be sponsored by us, you know?
Yeah. Now you got to use their
And
gear.
then you're like, you got to use their gear. And
Yeah.
then I always like, my biggest things I like to refer to the movie Idiocracy.
I love that movie.
And that dude just keeps saying, you know, what was it he kept saying?
The Gatorade one?
Yeah, so no, it was like, was it the Whopper, or he was saying, he kept saying something over. Why does he keep saying that? He goes, oh, he gets paid every time he says it, idiot. And I was just all like, and I go, I feel like that. I get that. I'm all like, God damn, dude. Like every time you're talking, you're like,
that's the hydration they need.
Yeah. What's what plants crave.
Yeah, it's what plants crave.
Yeah.
It's such a good movie, dude. I watched that movie when I was a little kid, and I was like, this is my future.
I watch it about once a year.
Yeah.
And it's just like, it just becomes more and more to fruition. It's like, it's
dude,
really
it's
scary.
It's eerie.
Mike Nelson even said, he's like, I didn't think my movie would turn into a documentary.
Yeah. That's too good.
But that's part of the biggest part of our industry right now. It is because it is expanding.
Yeah.
And because a lot of people are kind of getting into tattooing and through different avenues. I won't even go into tattoo schools. Like,
yeah, that sounds like a whole pickle.
You know, that's a whole different thing. But it's like, so they're missing out on some of these traditions, some of these, you know, moral compass. That's why you do things a certain way.
That's one of the things that really wanted me to try it too, was I love the idea of an apprenticeship.
Yeah.
And like the hand-me-down aspect of like, hey, the rite of passage to get where you're at. It wasn't like someone... I could read all these things about it. I could read how to do a line. I could watch videos on how to pull lines and like do that. But like the experience of having to go through, whether it be bad or good, cleaning up a shop, doing the dirty work, and then slowly
start learning those things. Yeah,
you get adjusted to the environment, and then you're like, you don't touch a needle for 3 months, but you've seen a needle impact so many skins, and you start to visualize what it is, and you're like getting hungry for it, and you're like, I'm thinking about it.
You just know that every day you're learning something. It's just like, even when I worked with my second mentor, Miss Mickey, for I think 5 years. It was 4 years. I think it was 4 years and change. I stuck by her side. I followed her to 2 shops, and then she decided to move back to Portland, where she was originally from. She did this whole cycle. She was in LA, Huntington Beach, like she tattooed all these places, and then her dad was becoming older and she decided to go back home, and I didn't follow her there. Speaking of tattoo schools and oversaturation, like that was a place that I was like, no, I'm going to call it here. You know, but I followed her because there was so much I could learn from her, and I still do. Like when I go visit her, like the last time I was up in her shop and I tattooed, like I think one day, did I even tattoo? I might not even tattoo. I think we went to visit her. It was the end of the night and she was closing up shop. And she was, all right, grab the trash, go do this, go that. And I just automatically was all like,
let's go.
And I was all like, oh, like, wait a minute, I've been tattooing for fucking ever. And she's been tattooing forever.
Yeah.
But it was just like instinctual. Just like, go do this. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
You know, and I was like, well, she gave me this life.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm still respectful, you know, and I'm still appreciative to her.
Yeah. All
these years later, because without her, I would not be here.
Yeah.
I don't know where I'd be, but I wouldn't be here.
That's super.
And I don't know if I would, where it could have went, because I've watched other people get apprenticeship with someone who was not that good, and watch their pitfalls. And you know, there was my buddy who was doing an apprenticeship, paid for it.
Dang.
Right. And then I remember we were all hanging out with us, and he brought out his drawing. He was like, check out my drawing. And everyone's all, yeah, that's rad. That's rad. And he looked at me, and I wasn't saying nothing. I was just sitting back, and he's all like, what do you think? And I'm all, it sucks. And he's just all, what? I'm all, it sucks. I'm like, you're doing an apprenticeship? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, the fuck are you doing with colored pencils? This is not the 90s.
Yeah.
I go, did you mean to do that with colored pencils? And he's all, no. I mean, what else do you do? And I'm like, what do you mean, what else? Watercolor.
Yeah.
And he's all like, oh, I don't know how to watercolor. And I'm all like, wait, you're doing an apprenticeship and you don't know how to watercolor? Does the guy teaching you know how to do it? And he's like, no, he doesn't. I'm all, what the fuck, dude? Like, man, this is bullshit. Come to my shop tomorrow.
Yeah.
And he came and I was like, I can teach you how to watercolor in 20 minutes. You have everything else.
Yeah.
You just need techniques.
Mm-hmm.
And I just drew random shapes, showed him pool water, push water, soaking paper, all these little things. I'm all, now go do like 100 paintings.
Yeah.
And you'll see, like, you'll catch it.
Yeah.
And, you know, to this day, he's like, oh my God, thank you so much for that. I was like, yeah, dude. And he goes, why do you think I ripped you on your fucking drawing that you did? Like, the drawing itself was fine.
Yeah.
Like, structure was all right, you know, but like the rest of it was garbage. Mm-hmm. And it was all like, you know, like, you know, the 90s tattooers could do color pencils, but they did them really good.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, it's like one of those, like I said, trends. Like,
yeah.
you can tell when you look at something, go, that's from the 90s.
Yeah.
Oh, it's new school and color pencil. Damn, what's up, 94? You know, like
those weird years.
So yeah, it was like big bold lines, Sharpie lines, and colored pencils and
That's
pastel
so
colors. It's like
Hell
shit. So what I would tell anybody, is just fucking draw and paint every day. And if you're gonna do anything in life, do it all the way. Don't half-ass it.
Fuck yeah.
Don't. Like, it's just a waste of your time and someone else's.
Hell yeah.
And we don't have enough time to waste.
No, we don't. We really
don't. That's why I'll just go out and hurt myself on a mountain bike today.
Fuck yeah.
Am I going to do it again? Fuck yeah. That's like the old skateboarding thing. I was like, well, I'll limp home, lick my wounds, and do it again.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you, Danny.
Yeah,
I appreciate you this
you.
episode, guys. I appreciate you guys watching.
Oh, yeah.
And,
camera.
dude, I hope you have a good time on your tour, and I hope a lot of people come and say hello, and I hope you make some good time,
it'll be,
good memories with friends.
Posting stuff on my Instagram about it.
I'll put the Instagram on the.
I ended up with the 360, the 360 camera, and my friends all, oh, you're gonna become a vlogger. I'm like, no, I'm not. And then he's all, that's how it starts. So, I'm all, son of a bitch, dude. Like,
that's so funny.
But it probably might, you know.
I have dude, it's fun. I used to vlog all the time. I have a premium version of this podcast, and I have 3 premium subscribers. It's 99 cents a month. Yeah, I didn't expect anyone to do it, but I got 3 people. So now I make 4 extra episodes of me doing random shit a month that are almost like 30 to 40 minutes long. And
there you go.
And it's fun because I just do random shit.
Yeah, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So I might turn into a vlogger. I don't know.
Yeah. That'd be dope.
Just talk about life, the universe, and everything, and
fuck yeah, dude.
Things on 2 wheels.
Hell yeah.
It's like the Zen. What is it? The Zen of motorcycles. The art of Zen of motorcycle. I don't even.
Yeah.
It's a book. It's a book that came out. I read like when I was younger.
That's dope.
So.
Hell yeah.
But
Thank you, Danny.
I got terrible memory.
It's cheers. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching. Yeet.